All right, everybody. This is Jay Baldy. This is Planet Texas, and I have a very important guest with me. We're actually going to talk about magic today. My guest today, his name is Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter has 20 years of playing magic. He's been an active judge since 1999, and he is also the event designer for DreamHack when it comes to Magic the Gathering. Mr. Carter, would you like to introduce yourself properly, sir?
Absolutely. Carter is the name I go by. My full name is John Carter. A lot of people get confused by that, but there are infinite Johns in the world. So people in the industry know me as Carter. If you've been at events and seen me, I've probably been wearing a judge shirt. I've stayed active. Next Thursday will be my 25th anniversary as a certified judge. Or if I'm doing show management, you probably see me running around in a bright red shirt so that when you have a problem, you can find me super easily and I'll take care of you.
Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Carter. So today we're going to start talking about the events, and there's nothing better than talking about the events and actually having somebody who runs the events and knows all about the events. Mr. Carter, could you please tell us about this pyramid that I'm staring at?
Yeah, you'd be looking at the pyramid the Wizards just announced. It's their new post-pandemic iteration of organized play, or as we like to call OP. And this is just a nice visual way for people to see what they can do to play Magic and how they can go from one tier to the next tier for the players that want to play competitively. If we start at the top and work our way down, you've got that World Championship. You know, everybody I know when I started out, I one day had fantasies about being a world champion. You can get there by being on the Pro Tour, and that can get you to Worlds. If you go to a regional championship, like in the U.S., the regional championships will be hosted by DreamHack. The first one will be in Atlanta, November 18th through 20th. And at that show, for the first year that we're doing these regional championships in the U.S., the top 48 players get Pro Tour invites, as well as their portion of $130,000 as the prize purse for the championship. As an extra bonus, those top two players at the regional championship also get invites to go directly to Worlds. Now, the way that this is going to all happen, though, is beneath that level, we have the regional championship qualifiers. And when we looked at what can we do, because DreamHack is all about building up the community and having players explore the games that they love. And I started playing and judging Magic at a tiny little LGS in Memphis, Tennessee back in the 90s. And I remember how important having that local community with me was, as feeling part of something bigger, and then you grow up from that. So when DreamHack looked at how do we want to handle the regional championship qualifiers, we just said to ourselves, look, we need to give this back to the stores. We want players to have reasons to go back into a store and play paper Magic again. The pandemic's been hard on everybody. It's been especially hard on local game stores. So we're just giving the game stores these RCQs to run. They order a very affordable kit from us. It's all about helping them get back on their feet and get the community back to playing Magic. You win an RCQ at your LGS. You come play in the regional championships at DreamHack, like in Atlanta this November. You do well there. You go to the Pro Tour. You do well there. You could win Worlds starting out back at your local game store.
Yeah, for those of that don't understand when he says RCQ, he actually means the Regional Championship Qualifiers. And the Regional Championship Qualifiers are for the local stores when you go play at them. That they'll have their big events in order to help the local stores. And then when he talks about the next step, he's talking about the regional championships, which is the qualifier Pro Tour or the World Championships. And then you proceed into the Pro Tour, which is one of the big events that everybody wants to be at. What are the prizes and so forth? Because that's one of the things that people are, they're going to talk about it. So we might as well talk about what it is that will be provided in order for entering the events.
So if let's start at the RCQ level, that's playing at your local game store. The kit that your store orders is going to have 32 pre-registration foils. That's to encourage players to sign up early rather than wait until the last minute. Because I've been around Magic players my whole adult life, and I know there's one thing we're bad at, and that's signing up for events early. So the first 32 people to sign up will get a promo Lava Spike. If you make the top 8 here in the U.S., you'll get a promo Nykthos. If you win the event, you'll get a foil version of the promo Nykthos. You'll also get a badge into DreamHack, so that when you go to the regional championships with that invitation, you won't even have to buy a badge. You just come right in. And then when you get to the regional championships, you'll be playing for your piece of $130,000.
All right, so when you say you win a badge, does that mean you get a free entry into DreamHack events?
That is a free 3-day entry. So all 3 days. Regional championship itself is Saturday and Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
For players that aren't competitive, though, we also have a full slate of the things that you would have expected at a Magic Fest or a Grand Prix. We'll have all those events available for you. On Friday, for competitive players, we have LCQs to help people get that last chance qualifier into the regional championships that'll be the next day. If you don't make it into the regional championships but want to play for big dollars, we have a $10,000 open event on Saturday, and we will have another $10,000 open event on Sunday. So in total, we'll be giving away $150,000 in cash to the players at the DreamHack Magic Showdown, which is the name that we're using to cover all of the things. The regional championship is one tournament. The 2 opens are separate tournaments. The overall experience, though, we're referring to is the Magic Showdown. So you might see that term. It just means all of the cool stuff that's going on around Magic. That's also going to include artist appearances. We're going to have some great vendors there. We're going to have influencers there. We're going to have cosplayers there. I was just talking the other day to Dana Fisher's dad. She is very excited about coming out to Dallas, which is not going to be a regional championship show. We're going to do a lot of focus on Commander in Dallas, but we expect to see Dana and her dad hanging out at our shows regularly because we love having them there. It reminds people this is a family show and that it's open for everybody to come in and enjoy. And it's great to watch their interaction, and I really enjoy seeing Dana Fisher curb stomp people that are twice her size.
Yeah, I get a kick out of watching like smaller people do stuff like that. Actually play Magic, like, because once in a year, regional qualifiers or whatever it is that we want to.
The big dollar event at the Showdown is the regional championship.
Yeah, at the regional championships, like I've seen every once or twice a year, we've seen the little kids roll up, and they end up doing pretty well. They end up on the feature matches. Like, that's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to see little kids and women do things of that sort.
Yes, I one of the things I've enjoyed the most as someone who's spent decades working on making events better is I see people discuss, what can we do to make this tournament or that tournament better to attract women or kids and things like that. And I believe that's actually the wrong way to look at it. If you're thinking, how can I change this tournament to attract these people? You're trying to drive it from the event side to the player side. And the better way, I believe, to approach it is let's look at it from the player side and say, what do these players want that will encourage them to come to the thing? I don't need to change this tournament. This tournament's fine, but it's not what they want, and there's nothing I can do to change that tournament into something they want. So let's find out what they actually want. That's why I love things like the Command Zone and emphasizing commander players like we're going to be doing in Dallas. Dallas, by the way, is June 3rd through 5th. That'll be DreamHack Dallas. We're going to have lots of emphasis on Commander. We're going to have Baldur's Gate for Commander Legends Baldur's Gate there. And the reason I love Commander is it hits this very different audience from the competitive side. It gets those people that just want to, sit in a chair, hang out with their friends, and sling some spells back and forth while they have fun. And that's providing a different experience, I believe, drives better results than trying to change the experience that we currently are providing.
It's very good. Like, it's something that no one has played Magic, like actual competitive Magic, in the last 2 years because of COVID. And just to have it back, just to having the thought of being able to travel again, renting the rooms and going out, like a lot of things that that I make it a point to talk about when I talk about Magic is go out and eat, go out and drink, go out and have fun, enjoy the city that you're in. And I don't think a lot of the players do that.
Yeah, you are 100% right on that. The thing that I've been training judges for years, because for a while, I ran the global judge program. I got my start in building judge systems back when I lived in Philadelphia from 2000 to 2004. And we created a thing from scratch when we were doing PTQs at Dream Wizards down in Rockville. The thing that I would teach the judges then, and it stuck, and we've run with it ever since, is go faster. The thing that players hate the most in an event, like you might have a bad ruling or you might have a rude opponent, like those things happen. We all know it happens. People make mistakes or are just jerks, and we try and make it better. But the thing that sort of eats at people the most is when they went all day long, they didn't win the thing, and they walk outside and it's super dark and all the restaurants are closed. And it's like, sometimes you just go eat at Denny's because it's the only option. But if we can get these events to go faster, be smooth experience for the player, then when they get done, they might have won or they might have lost, but they walk outside and the sun's still up. They can be like, I can go to a real restaurant and have a nice meal with my friends. Or I could go catch the late showing of that new movie that I'm excited about. And when we do that, it becomes just a much more human experience.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Like one of the things that I was talking about in our previous podcast was like having non-magic events. Like what I mean like non-magic events is like having ceremonies, like specials that everybody will get together, and it has nothing to do with magic. It's just a point of congregating together, of showing something of that we're united for a reason.
Yeah, it's I think the one thing that the pandemic has taught everybody who was a Magic fan before we got started in this is why I'm so excited about the future of Magic right now. Before the pandemic, we got so used to running from event to event to event that it became an everyday experience. You know, it was common. Winning a Magic Fest was awesome for that person, but it wasn't. It was like if there's one next week, it's not that compelling. There's only 3 regional championships. Being the winner of a regional championship is a huge deal. And I have some secret stuff that I'm working on with DreamHack where we want to really drive home the point that being a champion at DreamHack matters, marks the community. It sort of puts your name out there in a way that I think we lost touch with pre-pandemic. And then when we couldn't get together because of COVID, it really showed people how valuable just being able to get together was. And so the message I've been communicating as we come out of this is the Magic and Magic the Gathering is the gathering.
Yeah, you're right on that. I also feel sometimes I spent the last 2.5 years dealing with COVID, fighting with COVID. I've had COVID actually 3 different times, and I nearly died from the first time I had COVID from doing my duty, from doing my due diligence of what I was supposed to do.
I'm glad you made it through.
Oh, I did, and the bad part is I got 2 more times. But one of the things that I've learned from my isolation from working around COVID is it gave everybody like a soft reboot. It gave everybody like a new way of thinking that they previously didn't think because that was their normal way of life. And now I'm really glad that the events are back and everybody has like new ideas of how to be better and do better things when it comes to Magic.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity. I think realistically, if we're honest with ourselves as a community, we know that there are things that we need to change, there are things we should change, and there are things we want to change. And right now is that chance because there's so many people. I've been to PAX, Gen Con, Star City. SCG Con is their new iteration, and Hunter Burton Memorial, where you and I talked recently. I've been to all these different shows. One of the most interesting elements is right now we have a huge percentage of players coming in that came up in the COVID time. So they have never experienced paper Magic. For these people, what you see at a show is a first impression for them as far as the community gathering together. So that's going to set their potentially lifelong, experience and how they look at future events. But it's also a chance for us to say, what wasn't working in the old system and how can we make it better?
Yeah, that's perfectly the way that we should be thinking about how the new event should be done. How are we going to improve on these events? And what are some of the things that we can do, be done, and so forth?
Yeah, that's why I am always open to feedback. Sometimes, and here's a secret for people that want to talk to like their local game store and stuff like that. Local game stores get super busy. Sometimes are receptive, and sometimes they aren't receptive to hearing from the players about how they're doing things because they are a business and they've got their business concerns to think about. But one of the things people forget is if your local game store is doing something right, if they're being good to the players and taking care of people in a way you enjoy, tell them that. That's the thing that we go, oh, he's getting it right. I don't need to say anything. But if you're organizing an event, the highlight of your weekend is someone coming up to you and saying, I really like the way you did this or did that, or my play experience was better because you do things this way. And so just telling your LGS, what you like is actually a good way to give feedback because it tells them, don't change this. Because great LGSs, what they're always doing is looking at stuff going, hey, I always want to be better. If you get to the point where you feel like, oh, I'm the best, that's when you start slowing down. And when you slow down, you start slipping. So it's the stores and the people that are like, I can always be better in some way. The key is just figuring out what way and then how to do it. And that's where player feedback, whether it's at the LGS or if you see me in my bright red shirt, at DreamHack in the Magic area, like, just come say something. I would love to hear from you. And I can't make the world better unless I know what it is that you want to make it better.
Yeah, I don't think people understand. Like, I know they just look at the judges and they're just like, trash. And I can't believe you made that. Because they only look at they don't actually see people for actually people. And I've even got in trouble doing that myself. Like, I've gotten in trouble for, I'm not a sweet angel. Like, I'll be the first one to tell you, Mr. Crowley, that yeah, there's been plenty of times where I've shown up to big events and I'm just kind of like, it's 9 a.m. Like, this dude's trying to finesse me or play me for a fool, and I'm like, I don't really want to be dealing with it. I was like, this isn't even like the second game. Like, we have nothing to gain from this moment.
Realizing this is who my opponent is, and I can't do anything to change it.
Yeah.
Just realizing you got to let that one go, and player's going to be how he is.
Yeah.
It's a good life lesson.
Believe me, yeah. The worst part is when you remember that you're in a competitive event, and you're just like, and they remind you that you're in a competitive event in the worst way.
As a judge for so long, has really been, I've been the champion, if you will, of trying to remind judges, because it's very easy for a judge because we're always thinking about technical things, the rules, being very particular. Judges love it when there's only one answer to a thing. They just sort of assume it's always that way. But there are times when, in Magic World, there's an answer. But when you're dealing with players as human beings, you have to remember that human beings don't have one answer. And so I've been one of the leaders in trying to get the event organizers and judges to focus really on just let's take the concept of, if there's a guy who's cheating, we will be unabashed in slaughtering that guy and throwing him out. But if it's not that, then let's work on having compassion for the people involved and take the approach that once we've ruled out a guy trying to intentionally scam you, then it's probably just a human who's making human errors, and let's figure out ways to acknowledge a person's humanity while also maintaining the game's integrity. And it's been very easy for judges to focus on what they call the game integrity and forget about the humanity. But I mean, I remember being at the Pro Tour that Bob Maher won in Chicago in the late 90s. We DQ'd Ole Rod, who later was an invitational winner, and he is the guy on Sylvan Safekeeper. We DQ'd him because his deck list only had 56 cards. That was all he did. He just forgot to list 4 Bouncing Jaguars. And at that time, things were so harsh and tight that we just assumed clearly he's going to try and cheat by adding who knows what. But that's a ridiculous, as we look back now, it's a ridiculous notion, So things like that evolve over time, and the big push for me and the people that I've been training and working with is remembering that this is not a nameless person behind a computer screen. This is a real person right in front of us, and they're gonna have human reactions.
No, you're correct. You're completely correct on that. So when that happened, was it just an error, or was it?
Oh yeah,
That sounds like it was just an error to me. Like it was just.
I remember him standing off to the side, and he was holding up his deck list with someone. I don't know whether it's him or a judge had written in big letters DQ across the deck list, and he was holding it up with 4 pouncing jaguars in his other hand to get a picture to send back to the people at home because it was laughably dumb.
But that's all show though. That's in all honesty, like we probably need things like that to accidentally happen, or someone just like, oh, you got DQ'd for making a mistake. Well, you know what? People make mistakes, but as part of the game, we're gonna throw you out.
I mean, that's where I use that as an example because it's like.
Well, it's a good example.
Does anybody here think he was trying to get away with anything?
No.
Everyone, it's so obvious.
No, not at all. Like sometimes like I'm sure you've clearly seen people trying to cheat, holding stuff in their laps or underneath their sleeves. I'm just, when I say that, I'm just using my imagination from movies and just bringing it to reality.
Well, I had a call just in a situation where a player got taken out of the event, and this is where the situation is obvious. The hardest thing about judging is when things are not cut and dry. There's lots of stuff. Hey, judge, I pumped this creature. What happens? We can answer that question. That's very straightforward. Then you get into the gray areas of trying to understand a player's intent, and that's when things get real hard. And it's easy to make mistakes, or at least make things that may or may not be correct, but are open to interpretation. And so my policy, and most good judges, the policy that they have is they will not. They might offer their take on a thing, but they will not undercut a judge who made a ruling after the fact. It's like, I wasn't there, I don't have all the data. You're telling me your story about what happened, but I wasn't there, and so I'm not going to second guess that. It's not because we're trying to hide anything. It's just because there are so many details that go into an investigation. And so this player there was a card on the ground, the player's foot was over the card, and so was this guy trying to scam anybody? And, it seems suspicious until you realize this is not a small dude. And in order for him, the only value he could get is if he can manage to get that card from the ground up into his hand and have no one notice. And you would have to you'd have to literally double over, move his foot, slide the card out, and then slip it into his hand while no one noticed that he had to push his chair back from the table in order to get his bulk down to where that card was. And it's like, this is not a thing. This is an accident, and maybe, the card being on the ground is clearly an accident, and maybe the foot was covering up the card accidentally, or maybe that part was intentional, but that's where you get into, if a player did that, it probably was a bad gut reaction, not a sign intentional variousness.
Yeah, because I understand hand and eye coordination probably won't allow you to be as quick as a cat when it comes to getting a card from under your
shoe. If it was a card in a lap, I'd be way more concerned.
Yeah. I understand something like that because I can only use my imagination of on that individual. I could just simply say that I'm sure he wasn't physically athletic enough to do some stuff like that.
Yeah, that was an impossible thing to derive benefit from. And there are two streams of thought you can have. It's like, well, he didn't call a judge, so he bears some amount of culpability and needs to be punished. And then there's a version where you go, okay, he made an impulsive decision that was bad if he was aware at all. And then the question I ask is, how much is this going to impact this thing is problematic, and these little steps that got us here will accumulate into a reason to take someone out, but they're not going to be, there's no single thing that was done that made this person get into that situation. Sometimes people do stuff and we're like, yeah, this guy definitely cheated because he did this one thing. This was just a bunch of little things that piled up, and that it's sort of tipping the scales one grain of sand at a time. But it's also like, as a community, let's have some faith in each other that players can learn from these experiences and then become better people. So my hope for this player is that he can look at the judge community, realize that we are trying our best to take care of everybody, and that the best thing you can possibly do, this is advice for all players everywhere, the best thing you can possibly do if there's anything wrong is talk to a judge as fast as you can. Like, we have lots of leeway to fix things. This could have been just a simple deal with the card and talk to the player and be done. Nothing complicated. But people panic because they remember the bad old days and they think that the judges are going to do bad things to them. It's like, that's not, the judges who liked doing stuff like that, we kicked out. We got rid of those people. They are not a part of our program anymore. If they show up, sometimes people come have that attitude. We are more than happy to take that guy out behind, the tournament hall where no people can see him, and the judges will beat that guy to a pulp. That's not our image.
That makes
we
you
work
feel
hard
good.
to stop that. It's not a thing.
Yeah,